Generating traffic and sales can be a challenge for online merchants. But selling on the Walmart Marketplace puts your products in front of millions of customers who shop on Walmart.com. And right now, sellers who join Walmart Marketplace can save up to 50% on referral and fulfillment fees for the first 90 days. So get started today. Head over to marketplace.walmart.com/savings. That's marketplace.walmart.com/savings.
Welcome to E-Commerce Conversations, a weekly podcast focusing on e-commerce topics featuring interviews with prominent people in the e-commerce space.
Welcome to E-Commerce Conversations by Practical E-Commerce. My name is Kerry Murdoch. Niche retailing is our topic today. Many e-commerce merchants occupy niches within a general industry. Spotlight Retail is one of those merchants, but in Spotlight's case, it occupies 20 separate niches around one corporate umbrella. The entrepreneur behind Spotlight Retail is John Montague, the company's owner and day-to-day manager. Well, John, we want to thank you for your time today.
My pleasure. Happy to be with you.
John, Spotlight Retail focuses on many different niche e-commerce sites. How many separate sites do you operate?
We currently operate 20 specialty e-commerce sites that are completed and launched. We have about probably 5 more in development currently. Our more long-term goal, or at least in the next year, is to hit about 50 sites by the end of 2009.
You've chosen, John, to operate different sites versus a name that our listeners will recognize, Amazon.com, that has many products under a single site, or perhaps Walmart.com. Tell us why you chose the niche site route versus a single larger site.
Yeah, we try to appeal to the very nature and core of internet searching. Everything is obviously very keyword specific. And if you just think of Google's homepage, for instance, it's really nothing more than just a logo and a text field. So we try to develop sites around that specific concept. And that's proven to be pretty beneficial for us for all the obvious reasons and even sometimes the not-so-obvious reasons. For instance, it's easier in the long term to achieve a higher organic placement. When you think about the MO of all search engines, it's really simply just to generate the most relevant search results for the end user. And there isn't going to be an e-commerce site that's going to be more relevant for that specific search query when the end user is utilizing the search engine than an e-commerce site specializing in that exact niche. So breaking everything up into separate sites, we look at it from different angles, but certainly from the organic side of things, it certainly helps. And although organic placement takes time, we feel like we'll be better positioned as we grow and populate through the internet than a larger mall-type site such as Amazon. From click side of things, this is again in a particular niche, we believe definitely pops out of the page and stands out to the searchers when matched up against other advertisers. When you think about it, you could essentially trump a massive retailer who spent fortunes over the years in branding themselves by just isolating your products into a niche-specific website, making yourself look more like the authority on the product than this massive retailer. When you talk about Amazon.com, I mean, these are sites that have SKUs that have a SKU count probably well into the 7, if not 8 figures. These sites become more and more impossible, we believe, to navigate and offer very little specialization in one specific category. I would probably say just along those same lines, I guess the only shortcoming we would have with our type of business model is that we definitely don't cast a very wide net. We don't appeal to a large portion of internet searchers because our sites are so specific. However, when we do catch a lead, and all the leads that do get caught in that net are very, very highly qualified because they know exactly what they want and they've clicked on our site. So after doing a lot of analysis on our end of things, we believe that we would sooner have 100 highly qualified leads that result in our site than even 100,000 generic, unqualified, and even randomly generated leads. So
It's interesting. It's interesting.
Although the logistics of our business model are definitely more challenging, we believe that the rewards are there.
That makes sense. Tell us a little bit about your own background, John. How did you get involved with e-commerce? When did you launch Spotlight Retail?
Yeah, I graduated from Fordham University in New York, moved down to Florida, and I'm only going to draw a little bit of a background here I'll tie in something later. But moved down to Florida to work for a resort company in the hospitality industry, which proved to be extremely valuable to me in the e-commerce world because of how attentive they are to customer service. While still working for this resort company, I developed the first website selling water sports equipment. It was 100% a part-time garage-style operation at that point. And then one thing quickly led to another. We started adding more and more products to that one site, and this is where we decided to expand and have a little bit more vision in the company moving forward into the future, and that's where we developed Spotlight Retail. A lot of the relationships that we developed early on opened up more and more doors with products that were completely unrelated to the water sports category. So that's when we really, even back then, saw the importance of providing simplified, niche-specific e-commerce sites. So again, we incorporated the Spotlight Retail name, and we started branching off into individual sites. But it all started several years ago with just one water sports site.
When was that? What year was that?
The water sports site was launched in the summer of 2003.
Yeah, that's amazing. Your growth is amazing. You mentioned, John, that you operate currently 20 different sites, niche sites, with more likely to come. Roughly how many products or how many SKUs do you run in total across those 20 different sites?
Total individual SKUs between all of the sites are probably close to 10,000 at this point. And every site is different. And that's the collective sum of all the sites. But we have sites with less than 50 SKUs, and we have sites with several thousand SKUs in them. So I always believe it's not really a question of SKU count. I mean, you see a lot of other e-tailers out there just throwing as much as they can at the wall and see what sticks. I think there's a real loss of quality there, which is unfortunate. So although more SKUs, I guess, result in more lines in the water that could potentially lead to sales, there's a real fine line there to cross between putting together a quality site and accurately representing these SKUs and just, mass uploading whatever you can, however you can, and hoping for the best. So we don't stress too much on our SKU count, but I believe at this point we're probably right around 10,000.
Mm-hmm. With all of those SKUs and with all of the sites, my guess is you gave a fair amount of thought to the platform that you're operating on, sort of the back-end logistical issues of your business. Can you tell our listeners what platform you use and why you chose that particular platform?
Yeah, we're really proud of the relationship that we've developed with our shopping cart provider. The shopping cart itself is called Product Cart, and it's published by Early Impact. We did months and months and months of research in analyzing which solution was going to be the best fit. Now, we could have spent a tremendous amount of money, in the seven figures, millions of dollars, to have a customized solution basically put together for us And then we just started looking at the prepackaged solutions out there on the market. And it wasn't long after discovering Product Cart that we realized that there was, one, it pretty much served as a complete substitute to having to pay that type of money for a custom solution. And two, the back-end tools that it offered far outperformed any other solution that we'd researched along the way. So Product Cart is the shopping cart software that we use. As I said earlier, the logistics of our business model are a little bit more challenging, but with having every one of our sites operate on the same platform, they can very easily talk to one another, and we've been able to centralize all of our back-end processes. So Product Cart has proven to be, even just out of the box, extremely powerful and beneficial to us, and highly customizable too, should you need to make any adjustments along the way to fit whatever specific business model you have. But it was a long researching process, and I would debate anyone who thought that Product Cart wasn't, as far as we're concerned, it's the premier prepackaged shopping cart solution on the market by far. Yeah.
That's interesting. Do you, along those lines, speaking of logistics, do you fulfill everything yourself?
We're probably right now on a probably 70-30 split. We inventory about 70% of our sales, and we drop ship about 30%. Much of the drop ship, however, is we drop ship with vendors that we actually inventory products from, and it may just be at that given time we're out of stock, so we have it shipped directly from the manufacturer. So an overwhelming majority of our shipments come directly from our warehouse.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our listeners, of course, John, are mainly smaller. They're not as large as your company. Smaller merchants primarily. Anything else on your mind for them? Any advice you have for them?
Yeah, I think there are definitely a few undeniable factors that allow an e-commerce merchant to thrive and succeed, or unfortunately to die of a quick death. And in my opinion, and this is where I tie back to hospitality industry, customer support is definitely number one, and not too far behind it would be cost controlling. Those would be the two top things that I would advise e-commerce, merchant business owners to really be at the forefront of their efforts. And with regards to customer support, at the end of the day, the only thing you really have left is your word and the customer support that you're able to offer. I've really seen a lot of these e-tailers come and go along the way, and I'm shocked at how business owners allow this side of their business to slip away. I mean, we used to live in a society where the customer was always right. It feels like those days are slipping away, and it's more the customer is always wrong. And this mentality of taking care of the customer really has to start at the top with the business owner, and it'll trickle down accordingly. You cannot afford to, you just cannot afford to let this side of the business slip away. And from the cost controlling side of things, I think it's probably one of the biggest common denominator that puts people out of business as well. I mean, you need to be constantly aware of your operating expenses at all times. You've got to understand of meters that are constantly running, and you have to be aware of every single one of them. As a business owner, I believe you really need to understand every single one of them and know really what your threshold for pain is, because, I mean, there's some of those meters that'll just run all day long and it'll make your head spin right off. So it's really understanding, it's really controlling those costs, because they add up very, very quickly.
Okay. Well, John Montague, the owner of Spotlight Retail, and for our listeners again, that's spotlightretail.com. Is that right, John? Spotlightretail.com?
Yeah, that's correct. Spotlightretail.com is the main site, and then it can branch you off to all of our individual sites as well.
Great. Well, John Montague, we want to thank you for your time today, sir.
My pleasure.
That's That's all the time we have for this week's e-commerce conversation. I hope you enjoyed it. Please tune in next week for another new episode.